Welcome to the school committee meeting, January 17th, 2024. Salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Ms. Del Rossi.
Here.
Ms. Doherty.
Here.
Mr. Lay.
Here.
Ms. Martin.
Here.
Mia Rourke.
Here.
Mr. Bahu.
Here.
Mr. Conway.
Here.
7 present.
We also welcome Gisela this evening, too. Good to see you. Next, you have the minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the inauguration exercises of the Lowell High School Committee on January 2nd, 2024, and the regularly scheduled school committee minutes of January 3rd, 2024, and place them on file by Mr. Bahu, second by Mr. Conway. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion passes. Permission to enter. 4.1, permission to enter January 17th, 2024. Registered speaker.
Laura Ortiz. Laura, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please say your name and your address.
Okay, Laura Ortiz, resident of Lowell. So I wanted to thank the committee for doing a great job on trying to specifically detail, and I noticed it specifically in the permission to enter. I just had a comment. The last time I was here, I spoke about the exemptions. When you identify a student, I would argue 4 students or less, it runs a risk of identifying exactly who they are. Maybe not everyone in the district, but people on the street, people that maybe know that a student went to that school, and it might identify them. So I would ask if the committee would consider the opinion of Department of Public Health with their exemption and the Department of Public Health confidentiality procedures revised October 2012 directive, where they do not identify any students, including in public health data, of students of, I believe it's either 4 or 5 or less. And I would ask if the committee could revise anything that might identify any student less than 4. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I can appreciate the concern expressed, but I will say it was a conscious decision that we made to include the numbers, specifically because it's very difficult to understand the real challenge of special education funding. That was specifically what, and I made the motion, honestly, like 100 years ago, to include the numbers, because I felt it was important for us to recognize exactly what's being spent, not only for ourselves, but for the general public to have an understanding of what the special education costs are. We look at our budget and we see this great big huge number for special ed, but understanding that, it is tied to, in some cases, yes, individual students, usually to 2 or 3 going to a specific institution. So I understand the concern. It's never come up. I've never heard of any kind of concern around an individual student being identified by the institution that they're going to. I would perhaps say if the administration wanted to take some time to review with the Department of Public Health or even just to see what kind of the prevailing approach is by other districts. But before we institute that kind of across-the-board change, I would like to get additional information about expectations and kind of what our options are. Thank you.
Superintendent.
I'll be happy to comply. Thank you.
Great. With that being said, you have a motion by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call.
Ms. Del Rossi. Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Mr. Lay.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. Bahu.
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Section 5, memorials, 5.1, Gordon P. Jocelyn, Lowell Public Schools food service driver. Please rise.
Mr. Mayor, could I take a moment of personal privilege?
Motion by Mr. Rossi, second by Mr. Conway. Mr. Rossi.
I wanted to take a moment to address the item Agenda 6.1. This item is in opposition of two motions that were voted on by the elected body, one in September with a subcommittee meeting. It was 5.2 to get the process going to get a blue ribbon committee going. It was exactly requested timeline to create a blue ribbon committee, as well as identify a timeline and resources needed to find a permanent superintendent, followed up by a subcommittee meeting and another meeting in December. There was no reconsideration asked at any point. We have told the community that we're going to go ahead with what our plan was, and the votes we received, that everyone was in the same, that we were going to do this. So I'm just curious as how this can be a valid motion in terms of what was already unanimously voted on.
Are you asking me that? Sure. So this is a new body. Motions filed previously. I don't think would affect what's in front of you this evening tonight. Case in point, I believe it was 2016, where the Lowell City Council voted to put Lowell High School at College Stadium. And as unfortunately, Mr. Conway knows, about 6 months later after that vote, a new vote was taken to place the high school downtown. So previous motions, were passed or whatnot, don't hold water going forward.
There are also unfinished business because we've never reported out on the subcommittee meeting that we were all a part of, that the current members are a part of.
Sure, Mr. Rush, but this is a new body. The motion in front of us tonight, I'll read it off, we can go through it, and see what happens. Thank you. Motions, Mr. Lay, can you take a chair, please?
We're going to talk about motion 6.1 by Mayor Dan Rook and Fred Bahu. Motion to remove the interim tag from Liam Skinner's job title and enter contract negotiations to make permanent superintendent. Do we have, and we already have two people on our motion, so we don't need a second. So who want to go first?
Mr. Vice Chair, would you like to go to the registered speakers first?
Okay, we have registered speaker. You want to speak?
Okay.
Madam Secretary, can you?
Mr. Delorby? You have 3 minutes, and please state your name and your address. Thank you.
My name is Kendrick Delorbe. I live at 128 Mount Washington Street in the Acre. I'm here tonight not only as a resident of the city, but as a student of the Lowell Public Schools. I want to first thank Ms. Del Rossi for bringing up her point that she did, because I want to express my strong opposition to this motion. My concern really lies in the lack of thoughtful consideration that the committee is displaying here and the non-existent stakeholder input that is on display. One really glaring issue that can't be ignored is the overwhelming lack of diversity among Lowell Public School staff in a city with predominantly ethnic student population. As Mr. Skinner's first act as interim, he hired 7 white principals to 7 majority non-white schools across our city. It is disheartening to witness a discrepancy of this magnitude, and it raises questions about not only the committee's commitment to representing and serving the diverse community it serves, but that of Mr. Skinner's as well. As an administration, you preach inclusivity, yet to fail to put into practice. Furthermore, It's unethical and unprofessional that the committee is even considering moving forward with appointing a permanent superintendent without first posting the job position or reaching out to interested or qualified candidates. Lowell, being a school district filled with young people from incredibly diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds, deserves a superintendent who not only understands the unique challenges and needs of this demographic, but also reflects the diversity of the student population. This committee must take the time to conduct a thorough and inclusive search process to ensure that the chosen superintendent is the right fit for Lowell Public Schools. And finally, I just want to urge that this committee reconsider this agenda item to prioritize a more transparent, inclusive, and significantly more fair approach to selecting the district superintendent. Our students deserve a competent leadership that is representative of Lowell's rich tapestry of cultures. Thank you.
Mr. Allahanson? I'm sorry, Miss?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lina Al-Hassan, and I live in 311 Harvey Street in Lowell. I'm speaking today as a parent of 2 kids in Lowell Public Schools, and I wish to express my sincere endorsement for Mr. Skinner to continue his impactful role as the superintendent of our school system. Mr. Skinner's impressive qualifications and professionalism, coupled with his deep connection as a native of our city, make him an ideal leader for our school system. I firmly believe he has already demonstrated the qualities needed for a permanent superintendent. My kids, upon Mr. Skinner's arrival, excitedly shared their observations of seeing him actively engaged across the school campus, what I'm talking about Lowell High School, actually. His visible presence running between buildings, he's running everywhere between the buildings, reflects a hands-on approach that is both reassuring and commendable. Moreover, I have been personally gratified to hear about his interactions with students, from initiating conversations to offering words of encouragement and motivation. When thinking about how long other superintendents say, it's clear that many of them left their roles when their contracts ended. The following process of hiring replacement can be disruptive and challenging. However, Mr. Skinner, I see him as a leader who embodies a commitment to Lowell students and possesses a genuine understanding of their needs. His humbleness, coupled with his roots in Lowell, actually gives him the confidence that he is dedicated to the well-being of our students, and he can bring sustained positive change to Lowell Public Schools. I kindly urge the school committee to seriously consider appointing Mr. Skinner permanently. The decision would not only provide stability, but also ensure a leader who is genuinely invested in the success and growth of our educational system here in Lowell. Thank you for your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
Good evening, members of the Lowell School Committee. Good evening, Interim Superintendent Skinner. My name is Stephen Daly. I'm a nearly lifelong resident of Lowell. I live at 251 Topman Street. For nearly 30 years, I worked as a journalist and marketing communications specialist. About 6 years ago, a restructuring at my former place of employment thrusted me into an unexpected change in my career path. For a time, I served as an adjunct professor at a local college, but it wasn't until I started working as a tutor at the Shaughnessy School that I realized how much I enjoyed working with children, how rewarding that could be. Soon after, I began pursuing my teaching license. When COVID hit in 2019, an opportunity arose for an in-person long-term substitute position at the Daly Middle School. Liam Skinner saw potential in me that even I didn't recognize. He took a chance on me, and for that, I will forever be grateful. Now I'm in my 4th year at the Daily, and I often think back to those early days. When I think of Liam Skinner, I see a self-made leader. In a city of immigrants, he too is among those who came to this city to find an opportunity. He has succeeded at every level, first as a math teacher at the Daily, then as a long-term principal at the school. He excelled as the chief of schools, and to this point has proven to be a very effective interim superintendent. With Liam, you know what you're going to get. He is approachable, supportive, and passionate. There are always open lines of communication. Most importantly, he cares deeply about the students, teachers, and parents in the Lowell Public School System. He knows this city, and he knows this school system. Liam is a homegrown talent. He has invested in both the city and the schools. His own children have gone through this system, so he's seen Lowell Public Schools from many different angles. Because of the leadership, the Daily Middle School is not only one of the top performing schools in the district, but one of the top performing schools in the state. He has carried that leadership and his own high expectations into his roles as chief of schools and interim superintendent. As a school committee, you might think that opening up the interviewing process to find a permanent superintendent for Lowell Public Schools might be a logical step. But I assure you, the right person for this job is already sitting in front of you. I wholeheartedly recommend that you stick with the homegrown talent and choose Liam Skinner to be the superintendent for Lowell Public Schools. Thank you.
Ms. Sanborn?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Hoey Sanborn, and I live at 290 Sanders Ave. As a teacher for Lowell Public Schools and a parent of 2 middle school students who attend the Daily Middle School, I believe it is extremely important to have a superintendent who is familiar with our district and the needs that we face every single day. That is why I'm here to support the motion for Mr. Skinner to become the permanent superintendent of our district. I've been a middle school teacher here for 19 years, and I've had the opportunity to work for Mr. Skinner for 4 of those years. Mr. Skinner is the only candidate who is familiar with the needs of all of our students. His record as a teacher, a principal, and now as the interim superintendent in Lowell proves that he produces results that support all of the students of Lowell and help them succeed in all capacities. He has been fully invested in ensuring that Lowell students get the educational experiences that they deserve and the resources that they need. He is consistent and holds high expectations for our students, his employees, and himself. Going through the process of having other candidates apply and the overall search of potential candidates is going to use up valuable time and resources that are not necessary when we have the best fit candidate already in place. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Ms. Miranda?
Good evening. My name is Karen Miranda. I'm a resident of Lowell at 115 Ray Street, and I am also a teacher in the Lowell Public School System. I've been teaching in the system since 2006. Many of my coworkers have already spoken tonight about many of the wonderful traits that Mr. Skinner possesses and which would make him a wonderful superintendent. So I'd like to sort of add on just to some of their talking points. I know that it makes a lot of sense to generally open up a job search to multiple candidates, and I will echo the statements of Mr. Daly that even if the motion does not pass and this proceeds with a wide open search, I still think that in the end, you're going to find yourself hiring Liam Skinner. I know that some of the concerns that we have in the school system right now include absenteeism, for one. I know that's being discussed later tonight. I worked at the Daily Middle School for 17 years, and every single year, I believe, we had the highest attendance rates across the middle schools, consistently under the leadership of Mr. Skinner. So he can clearly achieve that goal. I know that rigor and academic standards are very important to us as a district. We are trying to improve our standards. Working at the Daily Middle School under Liam Skinner's supervision, we've had consistently high MCAS scores across the city year after year, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, ELA science, math. We're consistently at the top. That doesn't happen without strong leadership. So he's proven that he can rise our standards. When we talk about the culture of the city, I think it's important to note that Mr. Skinner is an immigrant himself. He has gone through that experience. He has a very diverse family. He is a parent. He has had children who've gone through the system already. He has children currently in the system right now. He's been a teacher. He's been a principal. He's been a coach in our city. He has served on justice committees for our city. He's been an assistant superintendent. He is now a superintendent. I also fear sometimes that when we open it up to the national search, we are finding candidates who end up trying to use Lowell as a stepping stone. The previous few superintendents we've had have not stuck around. They've chosen to leave. Mr. Skinner has been working in our school district for well over 25 years, perhaps 30. He's not going anywhere. We can't make any meaningful change in our school system if we don't have consistent leadership. We can't be coming back every 2 and 3 years and hiring a new superintendent and expecting us to make sustainable progress. So if you hire Mr. Skinner, whether it's now or whether it's in the spring, you're guaranteeing yourself good consistency. He is someone who restored professionalism this year to the role. It's the first time in 17 years that I've worked in Lowell Public Schools where I had a survey sent out, an in-depth survey. It took me 45 minutes, but I was willing to do it, that really asked what's going on in the school system, what are the problems, what is working. But this was the first survey that asked in depth, what do the staff see? What are the parents seeing? We have not had that engagement from others. And working for him in the past as a teacher, I know that he looks at those results and he will admit when things aren't working correctly. He's not going to put on this PR show that makes everything look sunny and rosy if there are issues that need to be met. So it's for these reasons that I think that Mr. Skinner, whether it's today or the spring, needs to be the next superintendent of Lowell Public Schools. Thank you.
Ms. Ortiz?
Do I have to say it again? Okay, Laura Ortiz, resident of Lowell. So I wanted to echo on the excellent speech by the Lowell High School student to talk about the desegregation order. There's a duty and responsibility of the entire school committee to not, to adhere to the desegregation order and to not go off track. And the parent involvement was very clear in this order. It was not amended and it's required to be followed. And I'm not quite sure how parent task involvement can be a part of it when you're excluding them from the decision making. You're not doing a blue committee. You're not having all of the ethnic diversity represented on a blue committee that would search for the superintendent. No disrespect, I think you're lovely. But I think this has more to do with a federal court order that has to be complied with, and the fact that the school committee, I guess because of a Colley decision or something, wants to go off track and fast track a motion that is not appropriate, that has not gone through the due process that it should have in the sense of the school committee, Robert's rules, whatever that it's called. And I'm very concerned because it is absolutely not in alignment to the rights of so many parents in this school district, that you know, the ELL student parents as well as the special education. And the school committee should have been very well versed in the desegregation order that we have. And I'm not quite sure, you know, why this is even on the agenda yet. I feel it's beyond a mistake, and I think you should listen to a student, you should listen to the parents, and you should not fast track this decision, because once again, it's just going to be zero transparency in a school committee that looks like it made the decision in the dark, and in tremendous violation of the rights of parents, which would then, I feel, probably cause them to do a lawsuit against this school district in federal court, which would then tie up this decision, you know, to no end, and also open up a lot of the issues that show that these schools are not equal. And I'm not quite sure that the school and district at all wants to be in federal court at this point. So I would strongly say my opinion is that you should not move forward with this motion. You should continue with the blue ribbon search committee and whatever else that you were going to be in alignment with the federal desegregation order, and not violate another one of these parents' rights throughout the ward. Thank you for your time and for letting me speak.
That concludes the speakers.
Thank you, all the speakers who came up and speak. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, would you want to go first, or Mr. Bao? Do we have one more person who wants to speak? Yes, you can. Go ahead. You got 3 minutes. Can you state your name and address also, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Vincent Rush. and I live at 20 Columbia Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. First and foremost, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, the school committee, the secretary, and to all who have helped to facilitate this meeting. I just want to speak briefly about the hiring process from what I remember. From what was discussed prior to and on June 24th, 2023, the candidates for interim superintendent position, as well as the public, that the position that Mr. Skinner now holds was to be a temporary position, and that there would be another interview process to select a full-time superintendent. Now it appears as if the process has been waived and Mr. Skinner may be ushered in without allowing other qualified applicants an opportunity to solicit themselves for this position. I remember one of the candidates, Ms. Campbell, pointed out the importance of having a person of color in place to help show other minorities that they too can possibly obtain this position, as well as other positions of authority within the Lowell school system. I also feel that this is important in a school system that has a diverse student population. I feel that when many possible candidates heard the position would be temporary, that it may have deterred them from applying for the position because they thought that they would have an opportunity to apply later. Personally, I mentioned this to friends and family that I believe that this wouldn't happen. I believe that the announcement for a second round of interviews truly was to deter minority candidates from applying for the interim position. And although we had a couple minority candidates apply, it appears as if their interviews were merely a formality. Now that the smoke is cleared, it appears as if either I'm clairvoyant or that the wool was pulled over our eyes. If the position was truly to be an interim position, then I don't believe Mr. Skinner should have been able to put his own staff in place. Reflecting back on what he said in his interview, Mr. Skinner said he would welcome the opportunity to work with the present staff at Central Office, as well as the principals and teachers in place. But it appears as if he would rather pick people who can work with him. And also, just would like to say that, what the young lady mentioned earlier about the importance of going through the true process, which is part of the legal process, and to be able to have minority candidates and also just people from around not only the state, but even the country to be able to apply for this job. And I don't think that everyone outside of the Lowell school system, of course, Mr. Skinner included, are just going to use this as a stepping stone. One of the applicants who had a lot of experience, with school systems such as in Springfield, and he said even Hartford, these are large school systems that I think that if they can handle that, they can definitely handle being a superintendent of the city of Lowell. And I just think others need an opportunity, and that this shouldn't be passed to just move him forward without allowing others the same opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more person who wants to speak. Is that right, Ms. Barboza? Is the committee willing to accept her to speak? Go ahead, Ms. Barboza. Can you speak your name and address, please? You got 3 minutes.
My name is Sherry Barboza. I live at 20 Lowell Street here in Lowell. I have 5 children who have all gone through the Lowell Public Schools or are entering. I have a 3-year-old who will be entering next year. I appreciate you letting me speak today. I did go to register 2 minutes after 2 o'clock. The reason that I'm actually here is because the Special Ed PAC reached out to all of us saying that it's not okay, that we're not following the process of the Blue Ribbon Committee. We're now in limbo right now because we don't have a special ed director. We have an intern superintendent, and just as everyone has said, and I'm making this short, we need to go through the process. It needs to be a fair process. That is what has been presented to us as parents. And if Liam Skinner is the one that is chosen, then that is what it is. But we have to at least allow the parents, the students, the families to all participate, the special ed parents, the ELL parents, all of the parents of the city of Lowell. We have migrants that just came in as well. There are so many different persons and people, and we need the opportunity not to just come here when there's very few people coming here to speak today. Let everyone be aware of the process so there's that transparency. We need that in Lowell to make Lowell as great as it can be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mayor Rook, you may start.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you to all the speakers that came out. It's a very important topic and subject for the future of our school and our kids. The reason why I forwarded the motion this evening for a vote on Mr. Skinner and removing the interim title is his 30 years of service within the Lowell Public Schools to our kids. He is someone that has started off and has taught at almost every level of our school department. He has grown in the ranks along the way from a teacher to a principal to the central office to his position prior to be named interim superintendent, the director of curriculum, and be in charge of the principals. He has done partnerships with higher education within the city, and he has invested in our children, and he has invested in our school system, and in return, the school system has invested in him. Once again, with the 30 years of service, and went through an exhaustive interview process of 12 other well-qualified candidates, and he was chosen at the time. And I would say that the last 7 months has been his interview process, has been his trial to see if he is qualified and can do the position. If a member of the committee feels that that 7 months has not yielded the results that someone on the committee does not feel has been productive, then a no vote tonight could pass that along. But I will be supporting Mr. Skinner to remove the interim title from the superintendent and to hopefully engage in the contract negotiations to keep him here long term. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bahu, would you like to speak?
Yes, I'm thankful for all the speakers that came here tonight and for all the emails that I received and everyone's thoughts and opinion on moving Mr. Skinner from an interim superintendent to a full-term superintendent. It comes with lots of thought. I was recently elected to the Lowell School Committee, and I ran on the premise that, our graduation rate is not very good, that our buildings are in difficult standing between mold, heating issues, HVAC issues, roof issues, leaks, not having enough staff to satisfy the cleaning and working in the buildings. I know that I went to a meeting at the Pawtuckaville Memorial in December, and we listened to the staff, we listened to the residents, and Mr. Skinner was there. I know that Mr. Skinner has had many meetings with many different people, not only about the buildings, but also about what he can do to move the school district forward. Now, we could have a search committee, and we could spend that 12 weeks and vote in May. However, the school district does need an awful lot of attention. Some of the attention that it needs is, firstly, of course, to hire a special education director. That's vital that we go ahead and do that. That covers about 3,500 of our students, and those students need to have the best special education director that we can find. And realistically, if we're doing a search, I think that whole process will sort of move very slowly. We have a transportation director that is retiring very soon, so we're looking at not having a transportation director, after July 5th. And if we're working on a search process, then realistically, are we sort of finding the very best person for that job to go ahead and transport our 11,000 students on a daily basis from September 1 and on. I'd hate to see a new superintendent come in and be rushed and learn the landscape of Lowell when we have someone here that's been within the school district for 30 years, has been a resident of Lowell for 30 years. I think that's really important. I'm also on the school committee at Greater Lowell Tech. Our superintendent is a resident of Lowell. Our superintendent has gone through the ranks, just like Mr. Skinner has, over at Greater Lowell, and she is a part of the landscape. She knows exactly what our student body is about. She knows who to meet with. She knows about going to the basketball games, about attending the football games, about who the staff is, how to make them grow, and proceed with them and work together. We have a big negotiations contract coming up, starting next 2 weeks from now. We have to negotiate a long-term contract with our teachers. We need to know what we can afford. We have to formulate our budget around that contract negotiation. That's a $275 million budget. It's actually $290 currently. Prior to the ESSER money coming in, it was $250. We're going to fall somewhere in the middle. We just spent $290 million. So what cuts need to be made? Who is going to formulate that budget? That's really important that we go ahead and we have someone that's going to formulate that budget. I have been to 2 building committee meetings of the new Lowell High School building project. It's costing $400 million. When I was knocking on doors and discussing that project with neighbors, with constituents of the city, they were indicating what's happening with that. You know, how come we don't know any information? We've just built a gym, and if you roll the bleachers out, it's ripping the floor. Okay, Mr. Skinner was at that, and he's like, how are we addressing that? And he was asking that question. And he was saying, how are we going to go ahead and run a track meet and be a part of that? I don't know that if we hire a new superintendent that doesn't have the frameworks of what happens in the city of Lowell, that we're going to get the best $400 million building project. When we did a $60 million building project at Greater Lowell Tech, our superintendent was at that building meeting every single time we had it. Whenever we had a vote for an added cost, we went ahead and made an educated decision. This school committee needs a leader. Liam Skinner has proven himself to be a leader for many years. I'm going through my notes here, and I think it's important that we begin to also address our attendance rate. We have, there was an article in yesterday's Lowell Sun, 28% of our students aren't attending school, where in 2019 it was 13%. We have spoken about that just on the last school committee meeting, and we have a 12-page report on how we're going to address that. Attendance is vital because it graduates students. And when we graduate students, we prepare them for either college or to be work prepared. Mr. Skinner is one that would like to develop more curriculum to benefit our students of Lowell. Curriculum is vital. These are all things that he does. These are all things that he's a part of. I don't know that we want to stop and begin to say, okay, let's halt everything for the next 3 months and hire Mr. Skinner maybe, not hire Mr. Skinner maybe, and realistically have to start at square one. We have to be very careful of what we do. Lowell has the perfect person in our superintendent, and I think it's best if we give him a contract for a couple of years so that maybe the next school committee is able to identify if he's doing a good enough job and to possibly renew that contract and give them that opportunity. But for us to just go ahead and halt everything that's happening and, run into the building issues that we're running into and the high school project and the budget and the attendance issues and the graduation rate and so many other issues, then we're not doing the right thing as a school committee. I will support Mr. Skinner because I think the school district is moving forward.
Anyone else want to speak? Mr. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of in a unique situation here. because I go back in the system for many years. Born and brought up here in the city of Lowell, and I went to Lowell High School. I started off there when I was 13 years old. And it seems as though I've spent my whole life at Lowell High School as a student, as a teacher for 22 years, as a housemaster for 15, school committee after I retired for 10 years. So I've seen all sides of our educational system, and I certainly have gone through many aspects, any changes that has happened. You know, I remember that when we had busing and desegregation, as a young teacher, I rode the buses to those schools and to make sure that those children were safe. So again, I think that I put many years into the system, and I will say that Mr. Skinner, you know, and I've gone through different types of searches, and I reached out to a number of people that I've worked with over the years, whether they were administrators, teachers, parents, and so forth, and they all agreed that Mr. Skinner was an excellent pick to be our next full-time superintendent. Again, I have a unique perspective because I worked with Mr. Skinner as an administrator for a number of years. I knew his reputation. His reputation as a principal, the daily school, was impeccable. We often would mention his name, and, you know, when we had Leadership Academy, you know, in Leadership Academy, we have administrators on the 3 levels, high school, the middle school, and the elementary. Mr. Skinner was at those meetings, as I was at those meetings, and we heard the issues and the complaints and the problems and so forth, and how we were going to solve them on our 3 levels so that we could have a great education for all our students. I will say that after I retired, I ran for school committee, and because I spent all my life at the high school, I didn't have a lot of questions about that, but the middle school, I needed a little bit of help. I needed somebody that I could go to and ask questions and get the right answer. Not the answer that I wanted, necessarily, but the right answer. And Mr. Skinner's name kept on coming up, and I went up to see him, and we developed an excellent professional relationship where I felt comfortable going up there knowing I would get the right answer. And there were times that he disagreed with me, and I can honestly say right now you were right and I was wrong on a couple of those. So when I take a look at Mr. Skinner and we have an opportunity, I've seen his work, I've seen his dedication, and as we've talked about a number of things here tonight, you talk about discipline and attendance. As a housemaster, I spent much time dealing with that. And I know, and he knows, and all educators know, that we have to have those students sitting in those seats. We have to have good discipline in order for education to take place. And I do believe that there's going to be consistency and stability in the school system. And Mr. Skinner knows the system. I feel very comfortable with this. And I will be supporting the motion that's on the floor right now, and I certainly hope my colleagues will go along with that, and that we will name Mr. Skinner as our permanent superintendent. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start by saying this isn't about Mr. Skinner. I agree with all the wonderful things that have been said about him. I have known him personally. Both my children went through the daily. I've known him professionally. I'm quite aware of his work ethic and his commitment to the Lowell Public Schools. But there are several important points that I want to make that this is about. The first one is, for those of us who are still here from the last committee, we took a vote in December, and I went along with that vote to delay the search process for the new committee. I felt that that was out of respect for the new committee coming in. At this point, it's starting to feel disingenuous, that it was not because we were actually committed, as my colleague to the right mentioned, to numerous votes of majority of this committee, that we were going to first hire an interim and then do a full search. Several votes taken that said we were going to do that. And now 3 new members come in and try to totally turn that around. I don't think it's fair. It's not open government. And I personally feel like if that's the way the vote goes tonight, I will have been misled, because I went along with the December delay thinking that we were going to move forward in January with a search, which leads me to my second point. I have been a very strong proponent of going outside and getting an investigation into our hiring policies, because I had heard unprecedented numbers of concerns about people getting passed over positions, getting given positions, all different, not following our policies at all. Our policies speak very specifically about a process and transparency. And here we are about to make a decision for the most important position in this district. And we're not going to follow the process that we just spent a ridiculous amount of money, because I was not happy with the report, but we know we have problems systemically, and we have to deal with those problems. But I'm telling you, we cannot deal with those problems by not setting the example ourselves. Now, as I started with, this is not about Mr. Skinner. I think very highly of him, and he may ultimately be the one we give the position to. But we don't know what we don't know. We don't know who's out there, because we haven't done a full search. And we said from the beginning it was an interim position. So it's not setting him up for any disappointment to say we're going to follow through on what we said we were going to do. We're going to do a search. We don't have to delay it. I think that having gone through a number of searches in my previous terms on the school committee, we can do a quicker search. We are, I think, late. And again, there's some regret. My apologies to you, Mr. Rossi, that I didn't push forward to do it in December as you wanted, but I felt out of respect for the new members, 3 new members, that we should start that process with the committee that was going to follow it through. But it's very important to me that we follow the process, that we follow what we are asking our hiring managers across the district to do. And I want to also remind this, because we have 3 new members, we got a report a couple of months back asking how many staff in the Lowell Public Schools have emergency licensure. It was 104 people. So we need to clean up our act here. And part of doing that is to set the role model, to say we're going to follow through on what we said we were going to do, we're going to follow the process we said we're going to follow, and we're going to get the best superintendent we possibly can. And I'm not saying it's not going to be Mr. Skinner, but to make this about the 7 months he served or not, like we don't need to go through the search process, I think is a real problem. And it sends a very dark message across the district. This is not the way to do business. This is not the best way to get the best candidate. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Ms. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lay. I think my colleagues have shared their concerns and thoughts on both sides of this issue. I don't want to belabor a point because I've made the same speech a number of times as we've been having these conversations. But to me, it really does come down to what this committee committed to when we went into the interim process. The conversations we had at that point, I think, were crystal clear. In that we were looking for, I mean, at the beginning of the process, we were looking for someone to come into the district to spend 1 year, which would give us the time to be able to, A, have an objective set of eyeballs for a year, and then be able to move forward with a full search that could be comprehensive and thorough. Again, we had internal candidates. Mr. Skinner had moved into the role. For me, that does not negate the commitment that this committee made to have a professional, appropriate, inclusive process in doing this search. I think that there's a lot of lip service that happens in any political body, absolutely. But to me, the blue ribbon process, the opportunity for individuals from, whether it's teachers, parents, in some cases students, other specialized populations, community groups, our colleagues at the community college and university level, and having them included, there is a very real value in having those individuals be able to ask direct questions to the person who is going to be leading our district. I've gone through this process where I've received the information from the Blue Ribbon Commission. I've gone through this process where I've sat in on the Blue Ribbon Commission and been able to really see the interaction between members of that committee and the candidates as they came through. And it is a valuable process. I think it's valuable certainly for the individuals who get to participate as members of the Blue Ribbon Commission committee. More importantly, I think it's of huge value to an incoming superintendent, because I do think that it is an opportunity to hear from a variety of constituencies that really allow them to hear directly about challenges and expectations and what the community is really looking for in a leader. My commitment to wanting to do this in a professional and comprehensive way, I have stated it over a year ago. I continue to feel the same way. To Ms. Doherty's point, I agree. It has nothing to do with the individual. It is that this body made a commitment to conduct this process, to do it in a way that rises to the level of importance that this position holds, and to do it in a way that allows our community to be part of it. I think without that, we absolutely cheapen the process, and that's not fair to anyone. That's not fair to students, parents, other constituencies, and ultimately to candidates. We want them to have the full experience of going through this search process because it serves a purpose. It allows us at the end to say with confidence that we've gone through the process and found the best candidate for our district. So I am extremely committed to moving forward with the established process. And I think that is what this position warrants, and I think that's what our community requires. Thank you.
Mr. Rossi, like to speak or? Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, would like to have the final words?
Yeah, ready for a roll call, Mr. Vice Chair.
I love to make a roll call from here, but I also want to make a couple of comments before I do that.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Just want to say that this vote is very important vote, and also this is the most difficult vote for me. I've gone through a few tough votes in the past, but this one is the toughest of all. So I want to thank all the people who text me and call me, and both sides, pro, yes to support, no, not to support. And they all of your comments really helped me to be a better school committee member, and also to be a better person serving the city of Lowell. There are, in the past, I claimed that I will support Mr. Skinner because I thought he's a good candidate, and also the internal person who knows the system, knows the city of Lowell really well, and I think anybody in the administrative office can be a very good superintendent in Lowell. Just we can have only one person, and also I keep on looking at the motion, and the motion is pretty clear that we just remove the superintendent title to make him a permanent superintendent. For me, that's what I wanted in the past. The only stipulation was, do we have the right to overturn, well, not overturn, but there was a motion talking about doing a search. And now we have this new motion that would make the search moot. I call a lot of people who knows the Robert's rules and laws, just in case we may put ourselves into trouble by voting to support or not. And what I found out is it's not going to be okay. It's not going to be any problem. So therefore, I am going to vote to support this motion. Thank you.
Any other comments? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Rossi?
No.
Ms. Doherty?
No.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
No.
Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
4 yeas, 3 nays, motion passes.
Thank you for all the speakers that came out. Moving on, 6.2 by Dave Conway. Request the superintendent develop a plan to strengthen and expand our partnerships with UMass Lowell and Middlesex Community College. Seconded by Mr. Bahu. Mr. Conway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular motion, I think if we go back and take a look at a successful school system, you're going to see partnerships are going to be very strong. And I think that's something over the years that we certainly have worked at. And again, I think with the years' experience that I've had, I found that reaching out to the university, to Middlesex, to the business community and so forth, it was extremely helpful to our school system for many, many years. And I will say that sometimes we get a little complacent because we have good partnerships, but what I'd like to do is, through you, to the superintendent, I'd like the superintendent to contact Middlesex Community College and the university and take a look at what new type of partnerships that we could perhaps develop and which ones we can strengthen. And sometimes I think if you take a look at that bag of tricks that we have and look in it, we might find something in there that we haven't perhaps used in quite a while that can be that can be very helpful to our school system. Let me just give you one quick example here, or two quick examples. MCC. I don't know how many people have ever heard of MCC Day at LHS. Well, I mean, nobody in here. Well, the way that developed, it developed because Lowell High School, our attendance rate was dropping, our college admissions were dropping. When we talked to our partners at Middlesex Community College, they were having some of the same things. So what we ended up doing is we ended up merging our resources and our efforts. And from from Middlesex Community College, we had Dr. Molly Sheehy, Dr. Jay Lenahan, and Maria Cunha worked very hard with our students. And just very quickly, from Middlesex Community College, what we did was we took our seniors at Lowell High, we put them in the little theater, we moved them through every single one of our English classes, and they ended up going into the little theater. What they found in the little theater is they found the professors, department heads from Middlesex Community College, and they were giving a lecture, quick little lecture of what that department is all about, what they can do with that degree and so forth. In the meanwhile, we had guidance counselors there. We had the finance people there. And it's amazing how many kids that we signed up, and these seniors signed up, and they were going nowhere at one time. And after we did that, in one day, we had so many more students that were now going over to Middlesex Community College. So these are some of the little things that perhaps can happen. So, Mr. Skinner, I think it would be great to bring a talented group of people to the table. And once again, when we come up with unique ideas, what we want is we want people that are willing to make it work. It's very easy to identify a problem. It's very easy to complain. We see that with our attendance. Now we want people there to say, hey, what can we do to change this around? And I think that we've talked about it before, Mr. Skinner. At the university, we had, they happened to believe in an idea that I had, and it ended up being laptops for Lowell, and it was on ABC News. Once again, why did we have it? We had it because our attendance was really sinking, and our college admissions were sinking. And with the help of Dr. John Wooding, and with the help of Senator Steve Pangiatakis, they believed in this program. And if I recall, I think there's a couple of school committee people here that actually voted to make sure that went through, and that was Ms. Martin and Ms. Doherty too. So again, if we go back and take a look at some of these partnerships and see if we can strengthen them up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments? All in favor say aye, opposed nay. Motion passes. 6.3, by Mr. Rossi, request the superintendent to review the zoning of schools in terms of dismissal times and efficiency with bus drop-off times. School zones attached. Seconded by Ms. Martin, Mr. Rossi.
Actually, Mayor, I was going to see if I could actually bundle 6.3 and 6.4.
Absolutely. 6.4, by Mr. Rossi, request the superintendent to work with the director of transportation to allow live bus GPS for all parents who have a student on the bus so that they'll be aware of where the child is. Seconded by Ms. Martin, Mr. Rossi, on 6.3 and 6.4.
Thank you. All right, so in just looking at the zoning, it's been a constant issue of wondering why one school is Zone 1 and why another school is a citywide school but not following the other school in Zone 1. That may be an elementary school. An example is McAuliffe's a Zone 1 school, I believe. Robinson is a citywide school. Just doesn't jive, right? And then those dismissal times and bus drop-off times to boot. Robinson is released at 2:10 as an example. Okay, so this kind of goes into 6.4 to request the superintendent to work with the director of transportation to allow for a live bus GPS, because Robinson is a 2:10 dismissal, yet all kids who get on small buses, all kids that get on buses are dismissed between 1:40 and 1:50. So their time when it's reported to a parent when they will be home is significantly later than the time that they'll actually be home. I experienced this just recently. And I thought there was an emergency with my son, and he was just yelling and screaming that he got pulled, and he was put on the bus, and it was so early, and then he was home at like 1:50 before schools even dropped off. Before schools even dismissed. So if we could really look at that, I even called the bus company to see what was going on. I said, why was I told that this is a 2:11 drop-off? They said, we have to say this to parents. We have to say this because the dismissal time is not until 2:10, so we have to say the bus drop-off time is later. So there are some major discrepancies going on, and I just want to make sure that they're all aligned. I work in a district where walkers are dismissed first, and then it's the bus students, so it aligns with the times. So and I know Lowell has to shuffle a lot around in terms of buses and so forth, and routes, but I think when it's coming down to times and parents' concerns with their child and where they are on the bus, I think that it's something, if we have the capability, that parents should be able to access it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? On 6.3, 6.4, all those in favor say aye, opposed nay. Both motions pass. It's not here. 6.5, once again by Mr. Rossi. Request the superintendent to work with appropriate city officials to have a police officer at crossing guard at morning drop-off and afternoon dismissal for Robinson and McAuliffe School in order to add organization to these times with heavy traffic and walkers. Seconded by Mr. Bahu. Mr. Rossi.
Thank you. And this is something I brought up last year about specifically pickup at the McAuliffe. It gets very hectic and drop-off. There needs to be somebody who has some type of a bright green vest or some type of an official person, because it gets extremely hectic in the morning and afternoon. And then currently with dropping off at the Robinson, and God forbid me for saying this, but you have teachers who are, because I'd probably be one of them, you have teachers that are coming down June or July Street and going left as parents are dropping students off and going straight when it's supposed to be a one-way. Especially with the ice and the snow, it's the perfect recipe for a disaster. And I've contemplated mentioning this, but the more that I see it, the more concern it comes. I get teachers are probably running late, and people who are out of town are probably not used to knowing that's a one-way and just try to go down there quick, but it's becoming a safety hazard, and something needs to be monitored. It's dark. It's maybe people don't know the right way to go, but some type of an official would be helpful in the morning situation. Thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye, opposed, motion passes. 6.6, Ms. Doherty, request the superintendent provide the committee with an update of my motion from May 17, 2023, requesting priority facility needs be addressed to ensure fair and adequate learning environments across the district. Specific facility improvements requested include the Bartlett Community School, replace lockers, window shades, bathroom repairs in the Career Academy, install the grant-funded $25,000 in culinary equipment that has been in storage for 6 years, upgrade bathrooms, and provide for an outdoor physical activity space such as basketball. The report should also include an update on air quality reports and mitigation efforts regarding the Pawtucket Memorial School. Seconded by Mr. Lay and Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say we can strike the last sentence about the Pawtucket Memorial School. We did get a report in today's packet about that school, so we don't need that
So moved.
sentence. I have also heard from people at the Starclosa since this was published that their bathrooms are in quite a state. So I'm wondering if we could add that about checking in the bathroom. I know we've got issues across the district. The reason I asked for an update on my motion from May is because we were told a few months ago, I want to say November, that the work had not been done. And I've actually been trying to get new lockers at the Bartlett School for 2 years now. It's been a long time coming, as well as the issue with the window shades and the bathroom repairs. The Bartlett has been in tough shape for a while, ceiling tiles falling out, things like that. So, and especially also with the Career Academy, as it says right in, this was taken right from my original motion. We have $25,000 in equipment, culinary equipment that was part of a grant 6 years ago, still not being able to be used at the Career Academy, as well as bathrooms in a deplorable state. So I'm just looking to see where we stand on those specific items. It seems like if we don't keep asking, it's not going to happen.
So we'll remove the mitigation from Pawtucket Memorial School and add the stock LoSa.
Right. Remove the Pawtucket Memorial because I think that's covered later in today's agenda. Thank you.
Great. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Part 7, reports of the superintendent. 7.1, motion, response to a motion regarding the Blue Ribbon Committee.
I guess we're not doing that now.
Sounds good. All right.
All right.
7.2, response to motion by Ms. Martin, 8/16/23, regarding remote work policy. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the administration for pulling together this information based on a motion I had made a while back. I appreciate the policy itself. I mean, my sense, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're really looking at a policy that would limit overall the opportunity for work from home really to a maximum of 5 consecutive days and 10 over the course of a school year. 10 cumulative. Is that, I'm trying to boil it down. Not that I don't appreciate the 4-page description, but just the basics.
Yes, in general, we want to both limit work from home to exceptional cases, but we also want to have the provision to be able to provide for it in exceptional cases where it would benefit the district.
You know, I completely agree. That was really my thought process behind the motion in the first place, that I think that there can be extreme circumstances, certainly, and for the superintendent and the administration to have that option, you know, should that make the most sense for the district? But that overall, really, the nature of the work of the Lowell Public Schools is such that being in person makes a huge difference, whether that's just being available for families and students directly, but even from the central office perspective, the ability to work together, you know, physically in the same space, I think, is a positive. So I thank you very much for going through this process. I'd make a recommendation that this be implemented as a policy for the Lowell Public Schools. Just because, as you all know, I'm a former English major, there are some typos, so if we could take a look at that, I'd appreciate it, just to kind of clean that up a little bit. And I would also say that my sense is that this is not limited to women, so if we could take out the references to she and maybe use they or something a little more gender neutral, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I think she needs a second, right? You made a motion to. I'm seconding it.
It'll come back as a vote, correct?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Anything else? Great. 7 points.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
can I have Dr. Hall provide some additional guidance and clarification?
I don't know if I really want to stop the momentum on this, but this was really just a draft effort where I was putting ideas down for you with anticipation it would go to the policy subcommittee, so I don't know if we're able to just put it on for the next meeting so we can take one more legal look at it and go over it with the solicitor's office before you finally vote. But of course, if you want to vote now, that's up to you, but I would just ask permission to go through one more review.
Respond?
Yeah, you can bring it back. I mean, wouldn't it be great to when we get a positive to actually be able to move forward? But
And I certainly appreciate it.
If we need to bring
but
it back, that's
I
fine.
Right.
Anything else? No. Moving on, 7.3, response to a motion by Mr. Lay, November 15, 2023, regarding school transportation. Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, Mr. Dakota, Transportation Director, and Dr. Hall. But I think the report is a little bit different from what I was asking for. I know there's a little note on the bottom, but somehow I was expecting to see a spreadsheet the same way shown with the name of the school and the data next to it, next to all of them. However, I like to see it in a different way. So I don't know if we can work on it in detail a little bit later, Dr. Hall, or should I set it back and have it done for next meeting? Is that something
We could attempt to provide more detail, Mr. Lay. I think Mr. Dakota wrote in why there were some limitations in providing all the data that you had requested. So all the information wasn't available in the format that you wanted to, but Mr. Dakota and I looked at it and provided it the best that we could. But if you want more detail, we can.
Yeah, can I reserve the option that we can work with you on this to make it a better report? Okay.
Discuss it at a subcommittee. Is that okay with
I'm
you?
sorry?
Maybe a subcommittee?
No, not a subcommittee. I just want to report the same in such a way that I was looking for, and this is not what I was looking for.
Mr. Superintendent?
I think, Mr. Mayor, that I understand Mr. Lay's intent, and I think we can provide more detail, and I'd like that opportunity. If it suits Mr. Lay, we'll consider this report response to be incomplete, and we'll come back to you with a more complete report.
Thank you. That would do. Thank you.
Great. 7.4, response to a motion by Ms. Thompson, September 6th, 2023, regarding air quality testing at the Pawtuckaville Memorial School. Would you register speaker?
Laura Ortiz?
Say it again. Say my.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Laura Ortiz, resident of Lowell. So for this one, I wanted to talk about the school dude list that for some reason is not making its way to the committee. I think it's great when you're asking for, the specific details on the Pawtucket Memorial. And this is an incredulous report out of the Bureau of Environmental Health, which I thank them, as well as to mention that all of these roof leak suggestions should be used in all of the public schools. And we did make a question to the Board of Health in regards to multiple citizens that are concerned to see if perhaps they can put some type of language so that you can adopt the best practices that the Bureau of Environmental Health is asking basically that you do in these schools, because your schools are unequal, you're in violation of the desegregation order. This school committee and the body and the district is moving more and more segregation away from these parents' rights and the rights of the children to have equality when they step into the Lowell Public Schools, which absolutely includes the air quality. And it's, beyond frustrating when the processes are not open and they're not transparent. Decisions seem to be made out of the public eye and not in the required public body forum, which is school committee meetings. We don't see enough of the superintendent meeting with the constituents. In fact, a lot of these comments that are made talk about stakeholders. And although I think that MCC and UMass Lowell and the nonprofits are incredible and our city couldn't live without them, the body of the school committee's job and duty and responsibility is actually to your constituents, and I think that this body has forgotten that. And I'm not trying to say this respectfully, and although I appreciate everything
Ms. Ortiz, is this a response to the air quality testing?
Yeah, the air quality, it
Okay,
is.
thank you.
It
I was on
is.
subject. Thank you.
And so circling back, I would, my opinion is that, when it comes to air quality, there's no reason that you do not have equal schools. Why do you have some staff that are subjected to deplorable air quality, and yet at some schools it's better than others? And I think it's just a reflection of bad management. And although I could say all day long that I know that the city of Lowell is responsible in its failure to be the landlord, the school and the school committee's job is also to ensure that the city of Lowell does its job. And we've had countless meetings, we've had years, we've given you reports, we've pulled records out of archive, and nothing has changed. And I think tonight's signal at a fast pace of decisions in the dark is just, we're just not heading in the right direction. So I would kindly opinion make that we have to come to a point where we fix these schools, these 302 roof leaks, and you adopt air quality best practices that are appropriate, for the desegregation students so that every student that is in these schools, regardless of which school, in which ward, will have equal air and have good air and won't
3
be
minutes, no,
made sick.
3 minutes is up.
Was it at
Thank
3
you.
minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I know, I wish we had a timer. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask that this report be sent to the Facilities Subcommittee. I think there's a lot of good information in there, and I'd like to be able to dissect that further. Also, in the cover letter, it's stated as a supplemental response, so I think there was a previous report, and I know Ms. Thompson's expectation was that this information would be released publicly, so I'm just wondering how we're sharing information about air quality and what we're doing to address the air quality issues with the stakeholders at the Pawtuckaville. And I threw you to the superintendent if he has an answer for me on that regard tonight, but to dig deeper into this issue, I think it should go to facilities.
So first off, motion by Ms. Doherty is sent to a facility subcommittee, seconded by Mr. Lay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Next up, Mr. Superintendent, Ms. Doherty's question.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. All of the testing results are shared directly with the school at the same time that we receive them and are distributed to all the staff. The school does communicate with their public and with the students who go to that school. We also have discussed it publicly at the school committee, which is another version. It's a public. The information here is a public document, so that's another way of sharing it with the public. I'll be happy to take guidance if you'd like us to share it a different way.
Thank you. If you could perhaps reach out to the Pawtuckaville Memorial Administration, see if they have any ideas. Do they have a newsletter or some way to just actually reach out to the parents so that if people aren't necessarily, I know it's edge of your seat television, but I imagine most people aren't necessarily watching our meetings. So I just would like some effort to keep the school community involved, that we are looking at this issue, what the results are telling us, and how we're trying to resolve it.
Thank you very much. I understand your intent, and I agree, and I'd be happy to follow up with the Pawtuckaville tomorrow.
Mr. Bahu?
This is a very detailed report. I went through it line by line. There are a lot of short-term and long-term recommendations. I think firstly, I remember when I visited the Pawtuckaville Memorial with the City Council and the school committee, there was some mention of a dashboard. And I know Ms. Doherty's, touching on something like that. How do you relay the information, the school letter or anything like that? I think that's important. I also think that it's important that maybe we have, Mr. Underwood or Mr. St. Cyr come to our next meeting and share with us, what's been done for, the short-term recommendations or what's upcoming for the long-term recommendations. At least that way, the public is informed, we're informed, and it's just not, wait and see, and does the dashboard exist, or does it start, or does it not start? Is it in a newsletter? Is it not in a newsletter? So I think it would be great to hear it directly from our plant directors, and then we could sort of begin to move forward and progress from there.
So, if I may, Superintendent, the subcommittees will be out tomorrow. I'll be sure they email all to all the members of the school committee. We do have a motion to send to a facility subcommittee. So if that wants to be called before we have our next meeting, to have both Mr. St. Cyr and Mr. Underwood here before the meeting and have the subcommittee then, make sense?
Sure, that'll be fine.
Sound good? All right, great. I'll have those out. I apologize not about to be out tomorrow. So, great. Next motion response, 7.5 is motion response to Ms. Doherty, January 3rd, 2024, regarding student absenteeism. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you for this comprehensive report. We have been, as a committee, investing very much in chronic absenteeism. There's a lot in this report as well. I'm not sure who's going to be doing curriculum. I assume it would still be Ms. Martin, but specifically around the recommendations going forward, I think we should send this to the curriculum subcommittee. I know that some of it, the task force around the newcomers, you're still working that out, so that might be premature when you have something in place to share with the subcommittee. I think that would be great. But definitely looking at what are the additional barriers and the information about flexible credit earning, updating the course attendance policy. I would like to see that fleshed out a little bit more so that we could move forward on making some decisions. But I think it's important just for people that maybe didn't have a chance to look at the report. It's been astounding. It's not just in Lowell. The chronic absenteeism from the pandemic that continues is just horrific. And it's worth pointing out that Lowell has been at the forefront in terms of modeling some of these interventions. The Green Alge was recognized by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They were able to lower their chronic absenteeism by 21%, which is huge. We still have really high numbers, though, and this report does a great job of desegregating it so we could look at by schools, by ethnicity, and I think that the high school is really where the rubber hits the road. We still have very high chronic absenteeism at the high school, so looking at solutions. I loved the stuff about what we're doing to try to increase mental health supports, working with community partners, doing remote counseling, just all these wraparound stuff that I think is really going to make a difference. So my motion would be, I would say thank you for this report, and to please send at least the part talking about recommendations moving forward, make that an item for the curriculum subcommittee to look at in the near future, so that when we get to budget time, we are looking at maybe making some changes that we need to support financially. We'll have the information we need.
Motion by Ms. Doherty, send to Curriculum Subcommittee, seconded by Mr. Bahu. All those in favor say aye. Motion passes. Next, 7.6, reports on motions. What would be the wish of the body, Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to make a motion to accept this as a report of progress from the superintendent, but I do have one item I'd like to pull out. On page 10, this is particularly timely if you're going to be finalizing your subcommittees, but we did have a motion quite a while ago to create an ad hoc naming subcommittee for Lowell High School. So if you could, perhaps as you're going through your process, pull together that as one of the subcommittees. Add it to your list. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
I don't know if anybody else took the opportunity to see if there were motions that could be pulled off, but I did. So I'd like to say that on page 2, my motion regarding the BHPK report can be taken off. My motion on page 3 from 9/21/2022 can be removed. My motion on page 5 from January 3rd of 2023 can be removed.
Excuse me, January 3rd, is that the one?
Yeah, it says 2023. But it should have been 2024, because that was just a couple of weeks ago.
It's a typo, thank you.
Okay. I'm just trying to, I know we try to keep the motions cleaned up so we don't have pages and pages.
Yeah. May I make a comment, please, or clarification? So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On this report of motions that you're looking at, some motions, when they're presented, you know, we sense that we responded to the motion and we're off that and we're on to something else, right? In the case of some motion responses, like the one for Mr. Lay's motion tonight, he was not completely satisfied with that report and wants further details. So we say that's not a completed motion, right? So for clarity for everyone, for us and for the committee, the column on the right indicates whether we consider it to be completed or not. This is something we discussed at a prior meeting. And so please pay attention to the ones that have a yes mark, because those are ones we understand to be completed. If you disagree, tell us so. Otherwise, we'll remove them from the packet because we believe we've responded to your needs. Thank you.
Comments? So, Ms. Martin, you wanted to? Right. Second by Ms. Doherty. Great. 7.7, entry plan report. Are you a registered speaker on that?
Laura Ortiz.
Laura Ortiz, City of Lowell resident, and I want to apologize, I didn't say thank you for what you all do. I think sometimes when we public speak, it might come off as a bit negative, but I hope you all know that, the thanks to what you do is always number one. So on this, I didn't get a chance to speak on the absenteeism, so I wanted to drive home 2 points about your report, which I thought was wonderful and lovely of, the great job that you're doing. And however, I wanted to talk about the issues of where absenteeism can start. There's a tremendous amount of students that are not being evaluated for special education. And if you want to talk about why they're not coming to school and why they're dropping out, that is one of the biggest reasons throughout the country. It is not the parent's job in order to identify and locate and find the child that needs special education. And I think a lot of, especially the high school, with the rates that we have, that is one of the biggest reasons, because ADHD, anxiety, and a lot of the other mental health disabilities will show up then when they no longer are able to have the support core curriculum with the teacher able to support them as they would in the high school. So I noticed that that's sort of not in the report. And so I wanted to make a point as well as to reiterate what I said about stakeholders. And again, no disrespect to the tremendous stakeholders that we have here. The constituents and the parents and the students are beyond an integral part of this district. And setting aside the federal court desegregation order, it's time and time again that they're not listened to. So I wanted to know if you could actually extend more listening sessions, time, to listen to what their concerns are, because aside from the issues that I mentioned prior, where I think the school committee is getting away from representing the actual constituents, is the fact that we've got an awful lot of students that are failing. We have schools that do not look like any of our minority children. The students are not relating. They're getting, they're getting the disabilities disciplined out of them. They're skipping school. They're quitting school, and I don't think it's right. And also, I wanted to drive a point about DCF. DCF is getting $400 million from the federal government, and nowhere in any of the reports, including on the absenteeism in here on this particular agenda item, talks about the duty and responsibility of DCF to get its students into school. I'm not quite sure why the district is still allowing the abbreviated school day time of these students under DCF care that are, whether they're out of district or in district, and why DCF is not held to the same standards as parents. Because if we're going to talk about, how we're going to make the school better, how we're going to support the community, especially of color and of disabilities in every ward, then why are we not talking about all of the examples of guardians, and why the state is not held to the same standard as the parents? And that is also one of the #1 reasons why kids are dropping out of school. A lot of these minority families don't like when the school shows up at their house, and they feel profiled and targeted. And I think with the decades of our community feeling that way, at this point in 2024, that we should be moving much more to inclusive and appropriate policies, which is maybe addressing the real reasons why students, maybe are having a hard time in school, and the fact that the high school is not supporting these students at the appropriate disability level, and you've got thousands of students
So
and that are not, don't have free appropriate public education. All right, thank you.
Thank
Is that
you.
over 3 minutes? Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Cut off next time. Any other comments, questions? Great. Next up, 7.8, oh, sorry, Superintendent, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to comment that this is a genuine report of progress, in part because it acknowledges in some places work that I don't feel I've done very well with. And so I'd like the committee, and I'm not asking for comments right now, but I'd like you to pay close attention, and I seek your guidance and your support in terms of areas you think that need to be addressed and need further attention. Thank you.
Thank you. 7.8, enrollment reports, comments? That there being none. 7.9, wage study. That being said, we need a motion to accept reports of the superintendent, 7.2 through 7.9, reports of progress by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, that passes. 7.10, home education. Comments at all? No, need a motion to approve by Mr. Bahu, seconded by Mr. Conway. Roll call.
Ms. Del Rossi? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Millay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
On to new business, 8.1, introduction of Superintendent Coach Meg Mayo Brown. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As someone who has promoted growth and continuous growth models and specifically coaching for teachers and others, administrators in the district, I've had the distinct pleasure of having a coach this year, somebody who is a superintendent's coach. I'm part of the new superintendent's induction program, and I've had the privilege and the benefit of being coached by a really super wonderful professional and renowned former superintendent. Dr. Mayo Brown is a longtime superintendent in Fall River, whose population and conditions are not so different from Lowell. She's also been a long-term superintendent in Barnstable on Cape Cod. And again, I've benefited tremendously from her guidance and support this year. It's part of her remit to, at some stage, introduce herself and the program to the school committee. And so she's here this evening. If you allow me, please, I'd like to invite her to the podium. Dr. Mayo Brown.
Thank you, Superintendent Skinner. Good evening, Mayor Rourke and members of the school committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening, and thank you for your support of Superintendent Skinner participating in the new superintendent's induction program. As Superintendent Skinner noted, I am a coach in the new superintendent's induction program as well as the program director. By way of background, not to be redundant, I am a retired superintendent serving Massachusetts for 14 years, 8 years in Fall River, feel very much at home in Lowell, and 6 years in Barnstable. The new superintendent's induction program is a partnership between the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, with additional support from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. It's a 3-year induction program. Over 300 Massachusetts superintendents have gone through the 3-year program. Superintendent Skinner is now in what we refer to as cohort 14. Part of the 3-year program involves a number of work products, such as an entry plan, which you've seen the progress report from tonight, as well as a report of entry findings. The expectation is that superintendents will deliver that to their school committees and their communities sometime in the spring after a full opportunity to go through the entry plan and learn deeply around what is important to the communities that they serve, and to have conversations with a variety of stakeholders in their communities, so again that they can report back to the school committee. The report of entry findings then leads into what we refer to as strategy. So after the superintendents have had an opportunity to deeply understand their communities, even when they've served in a community for 25 or 30 years, it's different being in the role of a superintendent, and you want to look at it you want to provide your superintendent the opportunity to look at it through that new lens. After they've had an opportunity to go through the entry plan process, make that report of entry findings, they are well positioned and suited in collaboration with the school committee to talk about strategy. In what ways does it make the most sense in this particular context and district and community to prioritize and move forward the agenda in service of the students, particularly in Lowell. That's a summary of the program. The first-year superintendents receive 6 years of coaching, 6 hours per month of coaching, where we observe the superintendent in practice, as I am here tonight. It's a dual process, both to introduce myself to all of you in the program and to thank you for your investment in Superintendent Skinner's participation, but also to see him in action and provide an opportunity for feedback and debriefing at a later date. In year 2, superintendents in the program receive 4 hours per month of similar coaching, and as well as content sessions. I should back up for just a moment and say in year 1, it's 6 hours per month of coaching, 48 hours of content sessions that the superintendents attend off-site and sometimes virtually. In year 2, it's 4 hours of coaching per month, in addition to about 40 hours of content. And in the third year, we group them into what we refer to as peer consultancy. So they get together with superintendents in the program, usually on a regional basis, and talk about problems of practice. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you once again. 8.2, budget transfer. I need a motion to approve a budget transfer of $1,166,851.75 by Mr. Lay, seconded by Mr. Bahu. Comments? Roll call.
Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas.
8.3, request approval of research study proposal. Motion by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Bahu. Roll call.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas.
8.4, request for approval of transportation staff proposal and permission to post. I need a motion to approve the transportation router position and permission to post by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Rossi. Roll call. Any comments, questions? Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Mayor, I think we should send these positions to personnel to be discussed. I have questions about the transportation router position. You're talking about a position with a salary range of 60 to 70,000, and there's no college education requirement. The experience is previous school transportation experience preferred, but not required. Typically we send these through personnel first.
Motion by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes for both positions in 8.4. Section 9, convention conference requests. 9.1, overnight request, Butler Middle School, Washington, D.C., Capital Tours Incorporated. 9.2, overnight request, Lowell High School baseball team, Cooperstown, New York. Overnight request 9.3, Lowell High School Student Council in Hyannis, Mass. I need a motion to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Lay. Roll call.
Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Section 10, professional personnel. Motion to bundle by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. 10.1, members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby donate 33 days sick leave to Amy Textera, Pine Arts School paraprofessional. 10.2, the members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby donate 27 sick leave days to Roberta Fillmore, Lowell High School teacher. Motion to approve by Mr. Rossi, seconded by Mr. Lay. Roll call.
Mr. Rossi? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Okay, have being done. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty. Second, you want to speak first? Go ahead.
Thank you. I won't take up a lot of time. I just want to take a point of personal privilege. I don't know if it was crystal ball, seeing that Mr. Glenn Kuchar was not here tonight, as we were told. He was going to be here at 8 o'clock. And we were also had multiple motions reminding everybody that we had asked Mr. Kuchar to be here. I did call Mr. Kuchar on my way in to the meeting tonight while I was sitting in traffic, and he said he had received an email from Dr. Hall on January 7th asking if he could attend, to which he had responded by email, I have another meeting. I might be able to get there by 8 o'clock. Would that be okay? And he never heard back. So in his mind, it was not confirmed that he was going to be here. And in fact, he was on his way to Framingham when I spoke to him at 6 o'clock tonight. I just think, like I said, it would have been horrible if Mr. Kuchar had come all the way here and we had already voted to not go forward with the search. But just I thought it was worth noting that we had received and had multiple motions asking for him to be here, and received notification that he was going to be here, but he wasn't. Perhaps it was just miscommunication.
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We were determined that Mr. Kuchar be here. The last thing we wanted to happen was this sort of a scenario where it might be suggested that there was some foul play. We were determined that Mr. Kuchar be here and called him today to confirm his attendance. We understood he was going to be here at 8 o'clock. He indicated he was going to be in Framingham and would like to join by Zoom. So we arranged a Zoom link for him and we had it ready to go. Mr. Kuchar also acknowledged and recognized that there was a motion on that earlier motion 6.1 and thought it would be a moot point if that motion passed. And since it passed, it was a moot point. We were absolutely determined that he'd be here tonight, and we were prepared to have him be here on the large screen via Zoom at 8 o'clock from Framingham.
Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the points that I did not talk about when I spoke here, I did call Mr. Kuchar also. Actually, he's one of the people that I called earlier. Just take any clouds, any doubt out of anybody's mind. I just want to let everybody know that I did not make my decision prior to today. And I did not make a decision today until I heard from our city solicitor. I didn't have a chance to talk to him until after 5 today, when he finalized and gave me the okay in terms of whether it was against the law or not in terms of supporting this motion. So I did not make any decision. I did not tell anybody about my decision because I did not even know what I was going to vote for until after 5 o'clock, after I spoke to Corey Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Martin. And we'll now do a... Stand by. Talk too fast. Okay, we're now start the meeting to go into executive session. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Ms. Doherty? I think we'll probably go in the room after we do
Yes.
the... Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Present.
Present.
Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Here.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Del Rossi? 7 present.
Right. Executive session, need a motion to recess and to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining strategies and/or possible litigation under open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, B, 2 and 3 of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts General Laws related to a review of open meeting law complaints of Laura Ortiz on affiliated positions, review and discussion of proposals for substitute pay for administrative positions, litigation update, review of unfair labor charge, and a claim of for vacation days, UTL, collective bargaining, request to bargain from UTL, review and establishment of ground rules, proposals, and procedure for upcoming negotiations, review of MOAs related to cook compensation and largest kitchens, review of MOA related to stipend for translation being expanded from paraprofessionals to also include cafeteria personnel and custodians, and review of potential establishment of split shift security position of which open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and to adjourn from executive session by Mr. Rossi, seconded by Mr. Lay. Roll call.
Ms. Doherty? Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Del Rossi?
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right.